Some of you may have noticed that I haven't been that active. Some of you may not have even noticed or cared, but I haven't been answering questions, posting for a little bit on the page, and there's a couple reasons. Number one is that I really do try to remain a positive individual. Okay, I'm a problem solver person. That's just my personality. I actually like high stress situations. There's a lot of opportunity in high stress situations to solve issues because I understand human relations and human emotions to the point where, especially as a collective society, there is a constant battle and an impediment to make any progress in areas where we need to make progress, desperately need to make progress. Well, why is that? Because we are born into institutions. We're born into families. We're born into religions. And most of the people on this earth, I'm no different. These structures have already been set up for us. And very, very few humans in their life change drastically any of the structures that they exist within. Okay. So, if you're in the United States, then you were born under a constitutional republic and it's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay. So it's been in place. Most of us that were born into whatever religion have remained, whatever that foundational structure has been. Even if you don't go every Sunday, you still are sort of ingrained in how you were raised, which is fine. But when you look over the landscape of the communities you live in, your state, your national government, the school, these structures have already been established. And so it's very, very difficult to make any kind of real significant change, even though it desperately needs it, like I had said before. Why is that? Because we don't like change. We don't like big change. Well, what an opportunity we had, which we've squandered, by the way, with this shutdown. Now, in the beginning, I'm with everybody with regards to any kind of cautious approach. Since now that we're this much into it, and now that we have the information that we have, I don't think that this shutdown was justified. I just don't. But nobody asked me. Now, when it came to the school closures for the remainder of the school year, and guys, I put so much time and effort into presenting ideas, explaining this process, interpreting the guidance, and trying to instill some calm in the coming storm. This was back in March, for a few weeks. Guys, that's what I did. I mean, and I really did stop some of what I was doing with regards to our regular legal work, so I could try to sit there and offer solutions and offer out of the box thinking, present ideas for moving some of the stuff that how we've been delivering education to our students has been so archaic. These just absolutely mindless rules that we've had with regards to compulsory attendance. The kids gotta be there between this time and this time. Start as early as possible, when many of those things are absolutely not feasible, not healthy, not positive for many of our students, and quite frankly, flies in the face of what we know about child development. So all of these things were opportunities. And I knew looking into the future that what we were going to run into was one or two paths. It was either going to be done poorly because there's no rule book. Okay, we're making it up as we go with regards to what distant learning looks like. Okay, You know, we know that there has to be a component of good faith effort. We know that there needs to be some individualized um, application of that. There needs to be a collaborative effect that includes the parent. All right. But at the same time, there's no real rule book that has come down to guide. So we make it up. So what I'm saying is it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be spots where it is working fine and spots where parents are elated at the kind of response that they've received from the school. But I also knew that we would have a spectrum to where we have the opposite end of nothing being done. I already knew that back in March. The hope was that we would take the poor path, and at least there was effort there, and we could sit there and learn from that, and we could constantly be changing and addressing it. The other option that I was wanting to try to avoid is what I'm afraid we're in now, and that is just a disaster, absolute shit show. So, and I'm sorry, I speak Italian every once in a while. So if you didn't know what that Italian word was, then just look it up. Sorry. So that's where, when you're looking at that secondary path that I was hoping that we could avoid, that's the one, unfortunately, I'm seeing now that we're a couple weeks into the distant learning. And so the reason I had to take a break, other than needing to absolutely just double down, and we needed to really focus, I mean, I've got a good team of attorneys and paralegals, guys. I do, and I do this on my free time. At the same time, what I'm seeing, because I have so many educators and administrators on this page, and also parents, guys, it was just disappointment, and to the point where I made videos, I just didn't upload them. I didn't show them. I didn't download them for any of you to see. Why? Because I was ranting. I was upset. I still am. I've just dealt with it and moved past it, and we're just going to have to sit there and clean this mess up, as we always do. That's the reason I do what I do. It doesn't mean that I don't believe in putting forth a good faith effort to try to stave off the need for me to do more work. I want to avoid that. That's the reason I have this page. But, sometimes I've just got to throw my hands up and say, there's nothing else I can do. Because everybody's reverting back to either not wanting to make a decision, not wanting to spend the freaking money. But yet, when you get the grant money from the feds, the bailout money, what are you doing with it? Where's that going? You already cashed a check for the kids. The kids aren't in school. People are still getting paid. You can't pay out for these third-party professionals that you were contracting with for, let's say, ABA services, other kinds of services. So where's all that money going? And you know that the grant money is there to help absorb all the expenses that the schools are supposed to be, spending right now. And that grant money will be coming in. But what I'm not seeing is I'm not really seeing a lot of effort outside of worksheets, outside of some basic communication. I'm not really seeing an individualized component. What's really disturbing is I'm not seeing the use of telehealth or teletherapy or those opportunities. And yes, you're going to have those children. My daughter's one of them, where it's just not feasible. Okay, so I'm not being unrealistic, and I'm not being unaware of the complexities of all of this. But what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, there's too much of that. And in too much of that in areas where there shouldn't be too much of that. And guys, what I don't ever want to hear again from educators, because you ruined it. Now, I'm not saying that you did it intentionally. I'm just saying it's sort of been ruined by this distant learning experience that parents can't teach their kids, because when you're sending home worksheets with very little reciprocal involvement, then the parents are doing it. Then the parents are teaching, and the parents are educating their children. And what I sort of foresee is I see a lot of parents that are going to make the decision to not send their children back to school. And I don't see that as a negative. I don't. I mean, we homeschool half of our kids. And, why did we do that? For a couple of reasons. Our sons have very different personalities. So there's a different reason why they needed this experience or they needed the homeschool experience. And it's been absolutely beneficial. And they're on par or exceeding their same age peers in all the areas. But the one thing that I can tell you that supersedes even the academic progress of where they're at is their social emotional well-being and their mental health. That right there was enough, because I've got very normal and I say, what the hell's normal? I mean, I guess normal to me, and I'm probably 5 steps off of normal as it is. I guess what the word I'm using is that my boys developmentally are acclimating very well. Not a lot of stress in their lives, and I think that this entire experience has probably calmed a lot of people's lives down. The noise isn't there. And I think if this shutdown would have happened for just a couple of weeks, I don't think that it would have had the effect that it's having, because it's gone past a month. See, habits solidify after a month, guys. And I think everybody's lives have calmed down. Not everybody, probably a lot of people's lives have calmed down. And I think people are starting to sort of reassess what's important. They're looking at their kids now. And I've already talked to multiple clients of mine whose children were anxiety ridden, resulting in myriad of health issues, emotional issues. And those things are dissipating, if not completely gone. And then the parents are seeing that their child's progressing. I just don't see that there's going to be some academic gap like everybody's expecting or thinking is going to occur. I just don't think it's going to be there. So I think that there's some positives to this. I'm mainly speaking to parents. And nobody's telling you have to be perfect with regards to, any kind of instruction. But at the end of the day, it is our responsibility. We had them. But at the same time, if you've chosen to enroll your child inside of a public school, then because we do live in a contractual-based society, we all sort of have differentiated responsibilities within our society, okay? And that's why we live in a civilized society, is that I'm focused on this so I can put bread on my table and do my job. And this responsibility that I have of educating my children, I'm going to defer that or delegate that over to the public school. Therefore, I'm going to register my child and send my child. And that's sort of a contractual relationship we have as a society. Those who have chosen to do that. And I think that that's where there's a disconnect as well, where parents are a little upset about how this is going, because that responsibility was delegated. And now the parents are still responsible for whatever they're supposed to do and educate their children. I am completely aware that most of you teachers also have those same responsibilities to your own children, and then at your work, which is teaching, that now you have all these. It's not lost on me. I completely understand that. All right. And there's no judgments there. I'm just telling you that this is what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing some very disturbing things out there with regards to how this is being done. So I had to take a break because I wasn't going to say anything nice about it. And I was done trying to provide solutions when nobody cares in the first place. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have to deal with the fallout, guys. We're just going to have to focus on the corrective action. We're going to have to focus on how to clean this mess up. And that's where I've turned my attention. All right. Now, how do you do that? Well, you do it through being a good IEP team member, trying to get those things negotiated with regards to corrective action. Because if they did not give you even remotely some kind of individualized instruction and related services, and guys, then negotiate with them for corrective action, compensatory services. And if they didn't contact you at all, if they haven't done anything, then guys, you have your role as an IEP team member. It's there. It has remained the same. This is just a little hiccup, and everything's going to work out fine. You have a 2-year statute of limitations in most states in this country. In North Carolina and Texas, you have 1 year. So you got some time to sit there and focus about how we're going to fix this mess. All right. But I'm just telling you that you make your first attempts to try to secure compensatory or corrective action in the form of future services. Now, the school has a responsibility to provide your child with a free and appropriate public education encased and embodied inside their IEP. Okay, as it is, encased and embodied in their IEP. When I say corrective action or compensatory, it's got to be on top of whatever that FAPE is in order for it to be true corrective action or compensatory services for what they did not do. All right? Can't be this. This is just the normal stuff that your child's entitled to. It's got to be more on top. That's corrective action. That's compensatory services. If they don't want to give it to you, they deny it, well, then you have your dispute resolution options: mediation, state complaint, due process, OSEP complaint. And I do the due process. I do the mediation. So will I tell you, if you live in a state where we represent parents, will I let you know whether or not there's justification there? Absolutely, we will. That's what we're doing now, guys. Like I said, I've switched gears. I'm no longer trying to help. We're already in this, and paths have already been selected by schools. And so now we're just in the cleanup mode. Okay? I know that might sound, it's not defeatist, but guys, I did so much time. I gave so much effort in March. It's not defeatist. This is just the reality now. So now we're just going to have to clean it up. Just understand as a parent and understand as an educator, as an administrator, that these are opportunities to avoid a state complaint, due process, mediation, or an OSEP complaint by negotiating with the parents on what a good corrective action would be due to what wasn't provided. And you can sit there and chalk it up as, well, we're good faith within, well, there's no rule book. And like I said, I'm not going to ever focus strictly on this time period. I'm going to look at everything. And I do that with every case. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who comes into our door and who talks to us. We always do a full analysis of a case going back the full statutory period. We write a narrative. We put the story together. We go back and investigate where the problem started. That's not going to stop. And, parents come in, we use the example like a doctor, that you come in and say, well, my kid has a cold. And then we look at the educational record, and then, we do that analysis based upon our expertise. And that's when we sit there and we say, well, no, your kid doesn't have a cold. Your kid has these things, as it applies as an example to your child's educational program and whether a FAPE was provided. So it's not a defeatist attitude. It's just a reality. All right. So we're gonna move forward. And that's how I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna go back to answering questions. But I can tell you guys, I'm not gonna be answering questions when it comes to the distant learning kind of, ambiguity, because I already did those videos. So go back and look at what I did in March, because everything's still applicable. Unless I find it a unique issue and novel, then at that point, yes, I'll answer the question. And we'll move forward from there. And like I said, there's some pockets where they're doing just fine, where the administrators have this thing under control, but they were good administrators before this happened. So when I hear certain schools are failing miserably, am I shocked? No, I'm not shocked. They were not doing good before then. So you add stressors on top of it, and they're going to absolutely falter and fail. The superintendents or the boards of education that refuse to acknowledge the position of a special education director and made their lives difficult and downplayed the importance, or maybe didn't give them the resources they needed. Well, it's not necessarily the administrator's fault. It was a lack of support. And all of these things are going to come back and bite that school in the butt. All things that were preventable. So that's why I don't feel bad for any of these situations. I was hopeful that we could use this as an opportunity for a tectonic shift in how we are educating our kids, and thinking outside the box and not being archaic in our delivery. I was really hopeful that we could do that. I think we're still going to be moving in that direction. And I think over time, I think that we're going to see some shifts, which is good. Okay, I'm not afraid of change. I think that we should be constantly analyzing ourselves and not only individually at what we need to change and take personal responsibility for ourselves, but I also think as a society, we need to constantly be investigating what we need to change in our society. Okay? And as far as politics, guys, we need both sides. No matter how much they annoy me, we need both sides. It's the extremes that annoy me, but we need both perspectives. We need a conservative perspective when we need a progressive perspective. Progressives can't see the perception of conservatives, and conservatives have a hard time seeing the perspective of progressives. Both are needed, guys, in order for us to be able to move forward as a society. We need all viewpoints. We do. Opportunity is in front of us to change. Are we going to do it? But we're going to remain positive. I will. But like I said, that's the reason I haven't been around lately, is that, if you're not going to say anything nice, and nobody wants to hear me ranting anyway. I get on soapboxes like I've done here for almost 25 minutes, but there was a purpose behind it. I wanted you to hear my thoughts on all of this.